It's definitely a privilege and an honor for me to have this opportunity to introduce to some and reintroduce to others. Our guest speaker tonight, who is Rear Admiral Stephen Evans. And even though this is considered a fireside chat, we want to make sure that everybody's kind of feeling relaxed, and without being disrespectful, I'm going to address our guest as Stephen by his first name, since this is an opportunity for us to sit around fireside chat and have that discussion. So Stephen graduated from the Citadel with a bachelor's degree, and he received his master's degree from the U.S. Naval War College. He also continued his education at the University of Virginia Darden School of Business, MIT, and then UNC's Ken Flagler Business School, also Harvard University's John F. Kennedy School of Government. Throughout his 34-year career in the Navy, retiring in May of 2020, Stephen served as diverse range of leadership positions across the globe, including combat roles as a ship, task force, and strike group commander, and critical training and professional development positions. He was a commander of the George Bush Carrier Strike Group with operational authority, and also commander of Naval Science Training Command, responsible for training 98% of Navy's personnel entering the Navy. He's also a senior military assistant to the 75th Secretary of the Navy. Following his retirement in May of 2020, Stephen founded the Flag Bridge Global Solutions, where he is the founder, chairman, and CEO of a global consultancy delivering solutions in areas of corporate enterprise strategy. So without further ado, Stephen, floor is yours.
Thanks, Ernie. Hey, good evening, everybody. Hey, thanks for taking the time to talk with me this evening. And I say that because I hope this is going to be a conversation and not just me just talking the entire time we're here together. You know, talking about transition and it's a personal experience. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about my story. But the only thing unique about my story is that it's mine. You know, so this journey is unique for each one of us that are going to go through it. So you're going to hear me tonight, and if you're either contemplating a transition, or you're in the midst of transition, or you've already made one transition, you're making another transition, make sure you talk to as many people as you can to get some different diverse opinions about what's going on, what's out there, about opportunities that you kind of explore your interests there. But as Ernie gave a little bit about background, but just to kind of fill in some of the gaps there, you know, I'm a surface warfare officer. You know, started out on my first ship, an aircraft carrier, and the USS Theodore Roosevelt. Was a plank owner on that ship, and from there, you know, being a young swell with a bunch of aviators was a daunting task, but I did okay there, and then went on to be a flag lieutenant, then into the crew desk community, and that's where I kind of made my bones in the Navy, as a destroyerman. Starting out as Bruins class destroyers, department head tour in the USS Hewitt out in Yokosuka, Japan. Then back teaching at SWAS over to War College, and then into my joint tour. And then back to sea as an XO in Way City down in Mayport before heading to the Bureau to be a detailer there in Millington. And then to the Navy staff and OpNav, and then over to the Naval Academy, where Tony Barnes and I got to run around the yard there for a little while, having some fun doing that, and then out to Bahrain for my major command tour. So and then after that, working for the SecNav, and then I got promoted to flag, and then you know, then that's a whole different world. And then with other challenges there too, but got to do some great work there at the Naval Service Training Command. And then to the George Herbert Walker Bush. But I finished my Navy career as the Deputy U.S. Military Representative of NATO out in Brussels, which was a fun tour. Then I made the transition after that, and you know, as you're thinking about the transition, for me, you know, and it's a question that I think each one of us has to ask ourselves. And I think you should start with it. I mean, a lot of people talk about, you know, what do you want to do, and that type of thing. I started with, and I tell everybody that they need to start with when you're making that transition is, who do you want to be? Not what do you want to do, but who do you want to be? When I say that, I mean, what is going to be fulfilling to you? What's going to make the next chapter of your life fulfilling? I mean, you've worked the job, especially if you've done it for a career. You've had a job. Now, what are you passionate about? This is really, you can really start taking a look at that. What interests you? All right, and then I start adding into where in order to do that, where do you need to be in order to do that? For me, I made the decision to come back home to Beaufort, South Carolina, and so that's where I live now. That's where I'm based now. So when I made the decision that I wanted to be somebody who prioritized my parents, so I moved back to Beaufort because that's where they were, and I wanted to spend the time with them. I was fortunate enough to have them both still in my life, and I wanted to be able to be close to them, and I help take care of them with how many every years I have left with it. And so that was my primary driver, was to get back here to Beaufort, South Carolina, which meant that when it came to what I was going to, so I wanted to be a good son, taking care of his parents, in the latter half of their lives. That's who I wanted to be. So in order to do that, I still had to make money, right? And so I had to figure out, okay, based on where I needed to be who I wanted to be, what is it that I could do? And so, I think that as you think about your transition and where you want to be, you got to figure out what your resources are. What's your network? To start building your network. If you're not building your network, you're building a network inside the Navy, Marine Corps, Coast Guard, wherever you are. But you need to be working on building that network outside of the service, because that's the one you're going to leverage probably the most when you transition out. And for me, it was no different. So leveraging, deciding that I was going to come back to the South, I was going to be here in this area. I really had to leverage my civilian network, and fortunately, I had some mentors there, some people to help guide me, and to help prepare me to do other things. And so I looked at, for example, I looked at corporate board work, and that's working. That's paid board work. When you talking about corporate. So how do you do that? I had to get some guidance on that. Took some courses on that, and working my network, was able to get corporate board seats when I was told that I probably wouldn't, because I retired as a 1-star. Now I have a lot of whole 1-stars on boards of publicly traded companies. That's where the 3 and 4 stars are. But within a year of retirement, I had secured 2 corporate board seats. So again, that's the power of networking. Then I also wanted to, I had to bend, as I bend my time, I wanted to do that. Had my consultancy, which is Flagbridge Global Solution. As I don't advertise much, but people still call me up and say, hey, Stephen, can you come take a look at this, or can you give me some advice on this? And and so I'll go do those if I have time to do them. And then lastly, I wanted to give back to my community. So I do volunteer work here in the community. I'm on a foundation, a philanthropic foundation that grants money out to people who are trying to help improve the area here where I am. And so that's how I kind of bend my time in what I do. And so, but none of this has anything to do with what I did on active duty. But I can tell you that everything I learned on active duty has prepared me to be successful in what I'm doing now. I didn't have to go back and get any additional training. I had to learn some new languages, a new vocabulary rather. But the skill sets that I learned, the decision making, being able to ask critical questions, and being able to problem solve, and strategize, and be able to and solve hard problems. Help people solve hard problems. All those things which I learned while I was in the Navy, and that's paying dividends to me to right now where I am now. And then we talk about work-life balance. I've been really focused in on that work-life balance thing too, taking care of myself and trying to stay healthy, because right now it's not about, I'm in my 50s, so it's not about, my father's 89, so I'm going to live a long time. So now it's about, because I got those good genes, but it's not just about living a long time, but it's living long time being healthy. So now I focus on being healthy, to have that quality of life that he has. Still class 1 dental, so got all my teeth and everything, so you can see they're still pearly white. Still work out. Don't shave quite as often as I used to, but I don't need to. So because again, I that's kind of my routine. So it's about, again, who you want to be, where you need to be that person. All right, and then after that, you start figuring, okay, what are my options and what I can do. That's kind of how I work through that sequence. Okay, and again, working with your network, building that network, and working with that network is and you have to leverage that. It's different for us because we're not used to asking. All right, we're not used to asking, but if you build a network right, you don't really have to ask. You just have to let people know what you're interested in, and people will go out of their way to help you. So I'm going to pause there because I've been talking for about 15 minutes now, and see if we have any questions.
So, Sir Biscuit here. One question is maybe we can address the participants and see kind of who's where in their journey, and whether or not they're short or post, and then maybe you can assist.
Yeah. All right. Where how many people here have already or getting ready to make a transition?
In a year.
Within a year. Okay.
Yeah.
So
I actually have a question, if that's all right, Admiral.
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Doc Simon, Coast Guard, former Navy, current Coast Guard 06, flight surgeon, physician type. I'm very interested in your, I see you're on a medical board here on your one of your background pages, and you just kind of briefly touched about boards, and you just kind of said you leverage your network, and that's how you secured those 2 boards. Can you go in a little bit of deeper dive there? Maybe a little bit more specifics about the board process, or any suggestions, tips, little onion peel for that for us, sir?
Yes, sure. I can, and I would tell you this. There's an organization called the National Association of Corporate Directors, NACD. Go to their website and start learning. Again, that's where I've gotten most of my board education from, is through that. They have a seminar which they do every year called Battlefield to Boardroom. They usually do it. I think they do it every March. I think they just finished one. But they it's typically attended by flag and general officers. But I don't know if I don't know if 06s are in there. But I would still ask the question. You, with your medical background, as you said, I'm on the board of a medical device maker. Okay. I know absolutely nothing. When I started that board, I knew absolutely nothing about medical device making. Okay. again, they didn't put me up, accept me on their board because I knew about the industry. They accept me on that board because based on my background, you know, I was a critical thinker. I understood strategy. I understood technology. You know, and because of my exposure in the Navy, I mean, here's just something that I didn't even think I could leverage, but I leveraged. I mean, based on the fact that you know, having been a you know, a combat systems officer, and then and understanding how data systems work, how IT systems work, you know, I could talk to them about their network, and not only that, network security. You know, not a hardcore cyber guy, but again, you know, I knew more than most of them, and so I'm on that board that because of my ability to be able to ask hard questions, my ability to be able to be probing, you know, in different areas that need focus, and then coming back to the board, and you know, and then setting up the leadership team to be able to report back to the board in a successful way. So I do that on a medical device maker, and also a home and residential security company. But if you're interested in board work, you know, if you're a year out, I would start looking at it. Start looking at it now. You, as in the medical field, I think you're a prime candidate to do that. I mean, you probably talk with civilians in the medical profession, you know, maybe not every day, but routinely. So you know, and you probably know some who are probably on boards. So talking to them and asking them questions about board work, what they think about it, you know, start learning about it, start figuring out how you might be able to contribute, because it's about how you're going to contribute to the board, and start that conversation. And again, once you start the conversation, you'd be surprised at how information starts flowing to you, because simply because you told somebody something you're interested in.
Hey,
So
hey,
answer your question.
Simon, I will tell you, if you have filled out a profile in LinkedIn, LinkedIn has a specialist who specializes in board placement. So find out who that individual is by perusing the LinkedIn leadership or staff. And she's contacted me several times. I just had no interest in being on boards, either volunteer or paid. And so I politely told her no thanks, but that doesn't stop her from contacting me anyway. So I would say, if you don't have a LinkedIn profile, you ought to, and you ought to populate it like 50 pages of everything you know, because they'll find you. They do data searches for people with backgrounds and capabilities. And for you, Stephen, I got to think that your time as a commander of INSTIC has really got to be valuable to board folks. Being the accessions manager for 95% of everybody who came in the Navy, rather officer enlisted, I got to think that was very valuable to them as well.
No, absolutely, Tony. Again, the things that we do just in the course of our jobs that we just don't think a whole lot about. They're fascinated that we've done those type of things, you know. You know, it's to me it's almost embarrassing, but they'll you know, it's almost like holding court sometimes when I go to the board meetings and we're at dinner or something like that. They just start asking me questions, and I'm start telling sea stories just about, you know, about daily life in the Navy, and they're just fascinated. You did what? You know, it's really impressive. Don't underestimate that, because we're so used to being in an environment where everybody's basically the same. But remember, these guys that haven't had that same experience. So you bring, if you bring your competency along with your humility, I always say you'll go a long way.
Hey, Corey, I know that you unmuted there. Did you have a question? Corey
Alex?
Doolittle, I think you unmuted earlier. Did you have a question?
No, sir, I didn't have a question. I was taking myself off of my background picture. That's all.
Okay, no worries.
Thank you.
So,
All right, Sherpa, thank you for that question. And I'm sure the Admiral, you had good help when I was working for you. That's my humility coming out. So what I'd like to do is for the other members of the group, let's say Corey, since we haven't heard from you and we like to participate, I'm gonna call you out and see if you either have a question or understand kind of where you are in your journey.
Hey, thank you. So my name's Commander Corey Doolittle. I'm a medical service corps officer. I will reach my 20-year mark May 1st. So where Admiral started at was where I was most interested. I talked to prior flag officer here recently about board work. I mean, I don't intend on transitioning anytime soon, but I was very curious about board work, paid board work, as well as unpaid board work and how that works in retirement. And so again, you started pretty much where I was interested at. You talked about some of the training opportunities that are out there to help you get ready for board work. Primarily my interest is in healthcare or any health services. So again, that was a great starting point. But I don't have any additional questions right now. Thank you.
and again, Corey, I would just say that, if that's your interest, always kind of keep that on your radar, no matter what you're doing. And again, as you're building relationships, as you go along here, that's where you really need to start building relationships and expanding your network, so that because again, the time to utilize your network, it's not when you're trying to build it, but it's after it's already established, and it so it doesn't become an ask. It's more of a conversation about what you're interested in. So, that's something that I started later in the game, but something that which has paid off tremendously. I think I spent my last 5 years in the Navy is really when I really started thinking about building a network and outside of it. Unfortunately, I had some people who were interested in me and again building a relationship with me. And then when it became time to transition, we're there to guide me to get to some of the places I am now.
Hey,
So-
Steve, correct me if I'm wrong. In some of these board opportunities, they're not just interested in your mental and academic contributions to the board, but also your financial Rolodex of friends and other folk who can contribute financially to your, to that company or that mission. And so you said something earlier that I think has resonated with a lot of our fireside chat speakers, and that is when you get ready to transition, you make sure and this may be foreign to some of the young folks, but your Rolodex of contacts and classmates and shipmates and whatever else, and make sure that you dust off that thing and get recent address changes and email changes and whatever else. Would you speak briefly to the importance of that aspect?
No, that's absolutely important to again have that current Rolodex. I mean, because depending on where you're gonna be, who you want to be and where you're gonna be, and you may find yourself reaching back into that Rolodex to make contacts, get information, and or help whatever organization you're gonna be a part of accomplish a mission. And that's and Tony's absolutely right. I mean, when you're sitting there talking with them, they want to know that if they're in the business of especially doing something with the Department of Defense, they'd like to know that you have the ability to be able to make connections. When I was working for SecNav, what was my job as a senior military assistant? I was his connector. So I connected them with with all parts of the Navy and Marine Corps, so he could accomplish his. So I had everybody on speed dial in that job. So and now that I'm retired, when I retired, a lot of my contemporaries now we're 2 stars now 3 stars. A lot of my contemporaries. So my Rolodex, it's actually still pretty good. And then not only that, but some of the folks that I've mentored and guided, we're now Navy captains, and 1 stars, getting ready to be 2 stars. And so so I can pick up the phone and talk to a lot of people these days. And that, again, people know that. So that's why I'll get phone calls. Hey Stephen, what do you think about this? We're trying to do this, and who should we talk to? And that type of thing. And then so as Tony mentioned, there's value in who you know. So again, build that network, stay connected with them, and make sure that you can, when you lose your Navy or Navy, Marine Corps, or Coast Guard email account, that you don't lose all that contact information in the process, because you're going to get cut off. If you don't get it done before you get cut off, you're not going to get to it.
So Admiral, thank you. One question I had is if you can share either, some of the tribulations that you might have experienced, or if you were to go back and kind of do it again, what would be some of those lessons that you would apply to yourself, especially with the knowledge that you know now?
Yeah, that's a great question, Biscuit. Thanks for that one. I would say this. I mean, when I left, it was right at the beginning of the pandemic. So nothing was going on. I just kind of left with no fanfare or anything. I couldn't do anything. I was just out the door. So I was really, and then nobody was talking to anybody about any type of work or anything like that. So I was really, I really had some real trepidation about, oh man, okay. I decided I knew where I was going to go, do what I wanted, who I wanted to be, but I still got to make some money. So what I'm going to do, so I did a whole lot of, I should have trusted myself a lot more than I did, because I was kind of reaching everywhere for a while, just kind of reaching everywhere to see, see who was interested. And I caused myself a lot of churn, a lot of trepidation, a lot of stress during that time. And I would tell you that you don't need to be that stressful, because you're just, again, once I settled down, but it took me all summer to do that. I think I retired in May. It was September before I stepped back and go, what am I doing? All right, let me go back to what I know. And again, going to the resources, going to my network, talking to them, getting advice, and then letting it play out. Because I wasn't worried about, I didn't have to worry about, feed myself. I didn't have to worry about having a roof over my head. I was getting a check every month, but I was still scrambling, because I was supposed to be working, right? I worked all my life. I was supposed to be working. So instead of focusing on finding, the right thing, the thing that I'm passionate about, pursuing the thing I'm passionate about, I was just trying to get something. I got to do something. I got to do something. And once I settled down, that's when things really started to fall into place. Because I started talking to people and things just started falling into place. And like I said, next thing you know, I'm interviewing with the board search headhunting company here for a board seat. I go through that whole maceration of interviews. It was 3 interviews before I even got to the company. And then once I got to the company, it was another 2 interviews, and then the final interview was actually dinner with the CEO and the chairman of the board. And that next spring. So, but again, don't let yourself get so nervous about being able to. I mean, you're saving, hopefully you're saving, you're planning, and you're prepared. But if you're retiring, you're gonna get a check, so you're gonna get paid. So don't let that. So don't let the fact that you're not working every day really throw you off. And it did for me for a little bit. It did. Hey, Pat.
Hi, how are you? Good to see
Good.
you again. Thank you
You
so much
too.
for being here. Those anxiety feelings you were having, was that before you did your personal assessment and figured out the who and what it is you want to do next? That thing that's going to make you leap out of bed every morning, racing off to do great things?
Yeah. Well, it was while I was doing it. It was while I was doing it. Because you got to narrow that field down. And that's the other thing is that we're so used to being told where to go and what our job was going to be. When you got to choose yourself, what it is you're going to do. Sometimes that's hard. And that's the other thing I tell you. And people know that, and some people are going to take advantage of that because you're going to get phone calls, saying, "Hey, can you come do this?" or "Hey, can you volunteer for that?" And you're going to say, "Yeah, I can do that," because we're yes people. We yes can do, and that's why we're successful where we are, because we are yes can do people. And but in that next chapter, you can't do but so many yes can do's when you're not getting paid for it. Okay, remember that. And or else you're gonna find yourself doing more work for free than you are getting paid for. And that happens. I mean, I'm butting up against that now. I doing work here in the community. I'm working with my alma mater. I'm on the board of the National Crime Prevention Council. You guys remember McGruff the crime dog? I'm on that board, that national board, and I'm on the board of the Pritzker Military Museum and Library in Chicago. All right, none of those pay me a dime. So but a lot of them came to pass while I was trying to. I got to do something. I got to do something. So people take advantage of me, call me up. "Hey, Stephen, we could really use your help." Like, "Well, I can help." Again, because that's what we do. We help make things better. And but you got to fight that. I'm about 6 months away from shedding some of that stuff. Because I need to focus more on the things that are making money. Like I'd like to get another board seat. I know I can't do some of the stuff I'm doing, or volunteer stuff I'm doing over here. So I got to cut it down to just the core stuff that really that I feel is impactful for me, and then take it from there. But but it's a process. We're all going to go through it. Just try to be aware of it while you're going through it. They don't tell you this stuff. They don't tell you this stuff in the transition program. You'll hear, but you may hear from one or two people, and you're not listening because you're thinking about other stuff. Then it starts happening to you. And you're like, "Yeah, they told me that was going to happen." So, and next thing you know, you're stuck because again, we're also loyal. We're loyal. So once we start something, we don't just want to up and quit because we're loyal. And it's that's part of being on a team that we're used to. We're on the team. Can't help the team if you're not on the field. So we all try to get on the field. So got to resist that. All right, you don't have to be on every team. You don't have to be on every field. Just be impactful of the fields that you choose to play on.
Sir, I'm just.
Did that answer your question, Pat? All right.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'm learning now, no is an acceptable answer. However, to throw your curveball, I got on the soapbox for a while, and I was telling folks that it's not just for the folks that have 20 plus years and they're retiring. Folks that are junior, a lot of times transition, not necessarily on their own accord, but they have to make that transition. So my question to you, sir, is what kind of advice would you give to somebody who's going to leave as a 03, 04, you know, they might be a little bit more concerned about having that paycheck since they're not retiring and where they're going to eat and where they're going to live kind of thing. But there has to be some kind of information that we can give to them as the folks on this call. It might not necessarily be us, but we are still in touch with juniors who might be making that decisions. And also, this is going to be recorded. So if they junior folks weren't on the call, they might be able to go back and say, okay, he is speaking to me, you know. So if you can, a little bit what you think those folks should be.
Okay. Well, I can give. I'll tell you Stephen Evans's opinion on that, because I know I didn't live it, but I have talked to people who have. You know, so I've seen it. So you know, if you're leaving, you know, prior to retirement or earlier than you had planned to, you know, first you have to kind of assess what your skill sets are. You really have to. What did you acquire? You've got to reach all. If it's early enough, you can reach all the way back into college. You know, what did you acquire? So what are your skill sets? You know, chances are that that you've already gained. Every officer, Navy, Marine Corps, Coast Guard, is an analyst. Everybody has it, so you're an analyst right away. I mean, so there are career fields that you can go into right away. You know, you may, based on the skill sets you have, you may have to change the order of priority because of where you are in your life. So I think where you are in your life helps you set different priorities. So if you're younger, your priority may be based on your skill sets. You need to be in a certain area in order to be able to use those skill sets. So maybe you can't be exactly where you want to be right now, but because you got to use those skill sets. So you got to earn a little bit more, develop yourself a little bit more, and be somewhere where you can grow in another organization, or where you can get into more skills so that you can jump into another organization to be closer to where you want to be. So you have to understand what your skill sets are, and then be able to apply them right away. But you got to go join another team. You know, unless you're a hardcore entrepreneur. If you're a hardcore entrepreneur, you know, you can jump out there and do your thing. You know, but there's risk with that. But again, we understand how to work hard. We understand about adversity and overcoming adversity. And so I would say that that's not out of the realm of possibility either. Here's case in point. I don't tell anybody. You don't see this in my bio hardly anywhere. But you know, again, while I was grabbing for things, I started a logistics company. I ran a logistics company for 2 years. So made money. Last year we made over $2 million in revenue. You know, I stopped doing it stopped doing it, and then I stopped doing it in August because it was taking up too much of my time, and it wasn't what I wanted to do. But I had gotten into it, so I couldn't stop after a year. I had to wait another year just to get myself out of it, because you know, I had employees and I had people who were dependent on me. So until I could put it in place where I could sell it and somebody else could run it, you know, I had to stay with it. But it was stopping me from doing other things I wanted to do. So, but again, I just jumped out there in an entrepreneurial spirit and did my thing as an entrepreneur. Again, because I had to be doing something, you know, until I figured it all out. That's in addition to the board work I was already doing. I didn't think I was doing enough, you know. Really I was, but I just didn't think I was doing enough. But so those are some of the things that you can do, but you got to kind of do that personal assessment. You got to figure out, okay, what skill sets do I have now? What level can I apply them? And then then go from there. I rambled.
Thanks, sir. Appreciate it.
So.
Hey, Admiral Doc Simon here.
Yeah.
May I ask another question if you don't mind, sir?
Absolutely.
Yeah, following up a little bit on Ernie's, sort of advice to the JOs, the 03s, 04s. You briefly said in your opening 10-minute remarks, you mentioned work-life balance. You didn't go into any details about that. You just kind of mentioned that.
Yeah.
But looking back on your career on active duty, are there things now that you see from the seat that you're in, specifically in terms of that work-life balance, that, you know, you're like, hey, you know what? Maybe I was a little out of balance there, or maybe I would have done this differently. Even maybe if it was at a risk of not advancing, or, you know, not making a flag, or, you know, I'm curious as looking back, if there's anything you're like, you know what, because we don't really get too much into that topic. You know, we're always talking about, hey, you know, the next job and promotion and this and that. And you know, we kind of sometimes do a little lip service to work-life balance, but, you know, we kind of, but at this stage in your life, I'm very curious as to what your thoughts are looking back, and any advice you would give. So.
Well, I would, since we're fireside chatting here, so and, hopefully Chatham House rules are in effect. You know, I will admit that I had no work-life balance when I was on active duty. I was totally focused on the job, you know, and it cost me, you know, in areas of my personal life. You know, and I never set out to be a flag officer. You know, my goal, once I saw that, you know, I started out, you know, as a division officer. And once I figured out that, you know, I can make a positive impact on the lives of my sailors, you know, by what I was doing with them, setting goals, working to accomplish goals, seeing the pride and satisfaction that they gave them, you know, when we accomplished those goals, and it made me feel good that I could be a part of that. You know, I looked up the chain of command and say, hey, my department head, I have one division of folks. My department head has four divisions. So if I become a department head, you know, that's more people I can have a positive impact on. And then I looked at, as a department head, I said, hey, the XO and the CO, man, they impact the entire ship. So I set that as a goal, you know. And then when I got the command of Mitcher, you know, which was one of the highlights of my Navy career, you know, I looked at the Commodore. Commodore has to shoot their 8 ships in the squadron, you know. And while you don't have that daily contact with people at those levels, you were able to do that. But then, you know, but that's as far as I looked up. You know, when I got pulled into when I went an interview for the Secretary of the Navy's job as a senior military assistant, I didn't think I was going to get that job. You know, I honestly didn't. There was already a swell in that job. That was now Admiral Fanchetti, and so he was rotating through the communities. So when I got that job, I didn't shock myself. I shocked a lot of people. You know, but again, so I went into that job I went into an interview. I flew all the way from Bahrain for that interview, and I just said, I'm just going to go there and have a conversation with the Secretary of the Navy, and he picked me. So, but what that did is that kept me on the playing field to compete for flag, you know. And then when I became flag, I got the stroke of luck of being able to go and serve as commander of the Naval Service Training Command. And holy cow, I mean, the people I had the opportunity to influence there, whether it was going to visit ROTC units, you know, or going to visit junior ROTC units in high schools, you know, going to OCS, going over to boot camp. I mean, all of that was under my purview. So I was making videos and sending them out to high school kids, and you know, just again, I had a captured audience, and I was taking full advantage of it, you know, because I was trying to make a positive impact on it. And so, but get back to the number friend. I had no work-life balance in the Navy. I admit that. Again, it cost me. But I am getting it now, though. I am getting it now. You know, I said I'm not gonna go into the second chapter of my life and have that same mismatch in the balance here. So what I do now, it's something I could have done when I was on active duty. It probably wouldn't have been that bad. It's once a quarter I take a trip somewhere. You know, I plan my year out. And once a quarter, I've been doing this I did it last year, and it changed my life. And I'm doing it again this year. And I said last year I went to 3 places inside the United States, and I went for 1 place outside of the United States. This year I'm going 2 and 2. But I'm getting away, getting refreshed, getting relaxed. Allows me to think. I come back and I'm able to work just as effectively. And lo and behold, nothing breaks while I'm gone. You know, and that's something that I would have never done on active duty because I was afraid something was going to break while I was gone. So that's but that's my take on work-life balance. I would say that you know, if you don't think you can get work-life balance, you probably can. So don't be afraid of it. You know, and I probably could have accomplished everything I would accomplish and had a little better balanced life, and I wouldn't have had to sacrifice the things that I sacrificed in the past.
You know, I recently heard an
Appreciate
entire
that.
lecture on work-life balance, and the speaker contends that work-life balance is an impossibility.
Mhm.
Something that you do 5 days a week compared to what you do on the weekends 2 days a week, there's no way to balance that. It's automatically imbalanced.
Yeah.
But I agree with you. You have to strive for it and try to do it anyway. If you totally discard it, it's the effects are horrible.
Right. So I mean, so it's a little bit of a misnomer because you're right, Tony. You're never going to get a balance, but what you can get is you can get experiences which you know, when it comes to endorphin levels and just the satisfaction of what you're doing in life for yourself and for others, you can get closer to that.
Yeah, I agree.
Denise, what do you got? You're on mute.
Muted. You know we weren't going to let you get away without talking.
Because you probably know I'm talking anyway. Hello. So, well, I did have a couple of questions, but I was going to hold up. So earlier you talked about not saying yes to everything and volunteer work. And of course, I'm in my 22nd year of retirement. I guess a lot of people thought I was at active duty for a lot of the years I was in NOE, and I kind of smile on that. But what happens if you get to where I've done the volunteer thing, and after, as everybody know, my exit off the board, I came home and said, no more volunteer, because I've really been leading 3 nonprofits during my 22 years, right? So I've done the nonprofits. I felt I've given back. I do the traveling, but I'm feeling very guilty. Like I have an active mind. I don't want to lose brain cells. I know I'm getting old and I'm getting very lazy. I don't want to work as hard as I used to be. Since you're a retired flag officer, do you have any guidance or anything for the lonely old 5 years? Really, I'm having lots of trepidations about. I get called for a lot of things. I've really gotten to the point where I'm saying no, and I don't feel bad. Even for work that I was considering, even paid work that I'm getting now, that I feel like it's more charity work because I'm not charging what I should be charging. But I don't know what to do about that. I feel like I'm stuck because on one hand, I don't want to do anything else, but at the same time, I feel like I could do something. Yeah. I would say this. I mean, and we need to have another conversation about you not valuing your worth enough to ask for it. So when people are asking you to do things, you're being compensated for it. We might need to have an offline conversation about that. But you know, if nothing else, create some scarcity about you as a resource, which means that you don't have to do as much work. And there's a book I could recommend to you, which talks a little bit about that. It's by a guy by the name of Daniel Priestley. It's called Oversubscribe. All right, and that's what you want. That's what you want to be. Is you want to be oversubscribed. All right, you want so many people wanting your talent and attention. All right, that you can command that your net worth goes up, your value goes up based on that scarcity, and so you're not working for everybody, but you're working for a few people, but you always deliver more than they're expecting.
Okay, and so you can build that clientele list, with repeat customers, and so you don't have to go out and find new customers all the time. You got repeat customers who value what you bring to the table, and since you're not working all the time, you can grow yourself. That's what you need to be working on. It's growing yourself, and I do that. I mean, I've become this holistic meditating, affirmation, type of guy that I am. All right, somebody's getting off there. But no, I meditate every morning. Started a journal. Go on these self-improvement quests. Again, this is about me. Being a better me. And you say, well, what do you mean being a better you? Aren't you good enough? So yeah. Well, to ourselves, we're never good enough, right? But if you're not focusing on other people, you want to focus on yourself. All right. How can you be a better you for you and for those that you love? And so that's how I feel that time. So you may want to consider that, thinking about it in those terms, Denise. And then that way, you don't have that void of not contributing, or not doing something, feeling guilty about it, because you're working on you. All right. And at some point you may say, okay, I want to, based on what I've learned in my journey here, that I can take that, what I just learned there, and I can help here, but I'm not going to help everywhere, but I'm going to help here, because I think that you can be picky about that, right? All right, just a
Thank
thought.
you. Thank you.
Just a thought.
Yeah, all you say is true,
If you want to
Denise.
talk about that offline, I'll be happy to do so.
All you say is true, Denise, but we all know that one of the best things that ever happened to this organization was when you came out of retirement, became the president of the organization at a time where you were really needed. So you know how much we appreciate that.
Thank you, sir. It was my pleasure and honor. Always was and always will be to serve.
I mean, like the rest of us, you're pulling out nose hairs that whole 2-year period of time, but we all know, having been there, done that, we know how much to appreciate you for that.
All right.
Okay, there's a couple of folks we haven't heard from here. We got to get some, Mary McAdams can't come on the line here without saying something. Mary, come out of mute and grace us with your presence.
Good evening, everyone. I know, right? So good to see everybody. I'm enjoying the conversation. It's like a fireside chat, which I appreciate. I have a focus, and I was just telling the president of NNOA that the other day, because I made him aware of some things that I do behind the scenes that a lot of people aren't aware of. But one of the things I said to him, because he said, well, Mary, you got to find what you're passionate about. I said, sir, I am passionate about career development of young people. I said, so my thing is, we put them in the Navy, we got to get their careers developed. So that's what I'm passionate about. And when I think of the rest of my life, it's all about my grandchild and my son. So I feel like it's complete. I would not want to do anything different since I'm closer to them now, but I do understand the need for helping others. And I think that's a great passion that we all have. And we do a lot of work toward helping other people and the young people. And Ernie, that was a great question for the Admiral about how do we advise the JOs on if they have to transition and they weren't ready to transition, because we know some of our junior officers aren't prepared when they have to get out. So Admiral, appreciate the answer to that question, because anything that we can do to give the junior officer a better footing once they get out, I feel like we've done what we should be doing for the future of NNOA and the future of them being great citizens. So I think you all know that when I retired, I went into education and taught at the high school level because I wanted to see what the Navy, why we couldn't bring in enough people that look like us. And once you get in the high school system and the school districts, then you have a different thought process about what we need to do to help. They need a lot of help. So, but thank you, Admiral, for that answer. And I really don't have any questions. What I would just say is we need to see that resume more detailed, sir. I think you did skip over a lot of pieces of that, and you didn't fill in the blocks that, you know, like going for a board process. How many interviews? I think you said 5. So, you know, that's interesting. And, you know, does it pay the bills now if you weren't retired with money?
Oh, come on. I'm not retired with money.
You're
But-
blacklisted, sir. You retired money, but it's good to know that these boards pay you to do work. I
Yeah.
think that's awesome.
If you,
Thank you.
I will say that, and this is public knowledge, that you go research this, but the average for 2021, the average director of a publicly traded company on the NASDAQ, total compensation, because it usually compensates you in cash and stock. The stock usually has the vest for a year before you get it, but you count. It's hi Pat, good seeing you. So it's but the average board director makes it's compensated, total compensation, anywhere between $180,000 and $250,000 a year. So that's not bad.
Yeah, I once had a conversation with 2 African-American graduates in the early graduation years of West Point, and who had successful Army careers as 06's retirees. And they sat on 3 or 4 boards each.
Mm-hmm.
And they were getting about $500,000 a year in compensation from their board work.
Right.
That's total off of 3 boards. Obviously, they didn't pay equally, but
Right.
you can, if you get onto the right kind of boards and they value what you're bringing to the table, the compensation is definitely impressive.
Yeah. And hopefully the stock will continue to grow up, to go up. And you know, once you have it, it's yours. Once it's vested, it's yours.
It's real money. It's not play money. It's real money.
That's not, you're right. That's not play money. So again, no, this is about, you know, and also I will say this, you know, when I retired, I put myself on a 10-year plan, you know, because I retired, you know, I retired, you know, when I retired, I was at 34 years, you know, so I was in my 50s. So, and I figured, you know, I figured I still have some work in me. So I'm, you know, so I put myself on a timeline of when I thought that I wanted to start ramping down. So I said, for 10 years, I'm going to grind. You know, I'm going to work hard. I'm going to grind for 10 years. You know, that gets me to between 65 and 67. Okay. And then then I reached that 67-year point. Then I want to be able to start to scale off on how hard I'm working, because about in that 10-year period, you know, I will have, you know, secured my financial future to a point that I'm on the trajectory I want to be on, and I can go from there. So I'll continue to do stuff, obviously, but you know, I don't have to grind, you know, because you know how we grind. You know, we grind because we got to get it, and that's what I'm doing now. I'm grinding now, but again, I'm into my 2nd year on that 10-year plan. So you know, so 8 years left, and I'm pretty happy with my trajectory.
Man, you're in Beaufort, South Carolina. A lieutenant can retire comfortably down there. Come on now.
Oh no, not anymore, Tony.
I'm born and raised
here.
It's been discovered down here.
I'm born and raised in Savannah, man. You know I know about Beaufort now.
Too.
So
No, he's on Hilton Head. Don't let him fool you.
That-
Oh,
that-
okay,
that-
that's different. If he's out there in Harbor Town, yeah, he better keep grinding for a while.
So Admiral, out of respect for the folks that either need to leave, we're at the hour mark. So what I would ask is if you want to do a quick wrap up, and we thank everybody who joined us tonight. So I'll turn it back over to you.
Okay, great. Thanks, Biscuit. Hey, I'll just say in closing, again, thank you for taking the time tonight to talk with me. I appreciate all the input, all the feedback, and the questions. I think those were important. Hopefully I said something that resonated with you. If not, give me another chance. So send me an email. Email is very easy to figure out. I'll give you my Yahoo email. That's the easiest one to get in touch with me on. That's not my business email, but it's S.Evans, that's SEVANS 342 at yahoo.com. Okay, or my phone number, which is 757-504-7600. Okay, and if you call and I don't answer, leave me a message, because I typically don't answer the phone if I don't recognize the number. I'm just like that. If somebody wants to talk to me, if they want to talk to me, they'll leave a message. That's my premise. And so that's kind of just the way I work. But it was great. Again, get in touch with me if you want to talk. I'm happy to do so. Just remember, this is just my opinion, okay, based on my experiences and my journey. So I'll put that caveat at the time. But I have to tell you that again, I am pretty happy with where I am in my transition into my next phase of my life. And it's some of it has to do with the opportunities that I've been able to take advantage of. Some of it just has to do with the fact that I just chosen to be happy with what I got. So again, this is Denise, this is the holistic, thing I was talking about. Again, working on myself. You can choose to be happy, you can choose to be angry, you can choose to be anxious. But that's your choice. And and then what you find though, what I found though, is when I chose, to not be anxious, to not be angry, to not to be chomping at the bit on things, stuff started happening for me. I was able to think more clearly. I was just a better person. I engaged with people on a lot better level, and again, things just start falling into place, and they continue to do so for me right now. So I'm happy with that. But and then whether you're getting ready to make the transition or you're thinking about the transition, again, think about those things. Again, I go back to, who do you want to be? Who do you want to be? And where do you need to be in order to be that person? And then start figuring out, okay, what's the aperture for what it is you're gonna do? Learn to say no, and then and enjoy life. All right, take care of yourself. And I'll end it there.
So is that number a cell phone that you gave
It is
us?
my cell phone.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
All right. So Mike, if you can end recording, and Admiral, if you can one more time with the cell phone number.